All right, solving absolute value equations here is what we're going to look at today. So absolute value, remember, absolute value means the distance from 0. So if we say the absolute value of 4, we're just asking the question, well, how far is 4 from 0? Well, obviously it's 4. The distance from 4 to 0 or 0 to 4 is 4. Well, what's the absolute value of negative 4? Well, the distance from negative 4 to 0 is also 4. All right, so we see that the absolute value just takes the number inside and makes it positive. All right, so let's explore some equations that have variables in them that deal with absolute values. Okay, so here we have an equation that says absolute value of x plus 2 equals 3. Okay, so we got to ask ourselves, what could this be worth inside the absolute values that would make this 3? Well, if x plus 2 equaled 3, then that would be a true statement. What else could x plus 2 be equal to? Hopefully you're thinking negative 3. So we're going to write two equations here. So either x plus 2 could equal to 3. That'd be true. So if x plus 2 is, x plus 2, all right, if that's equal to 3, we have an answer. But if the stuff inside here, if x plus 2 is equal to negative 3, then we'd have a solution. So let's use these now down here on B. We're going to use these to solve and find the solutions of them. Okay, so let's solve this. Subtract 2 and x equals 1. Subtract 2 and x equals negative 5. Okay. So once again, these equations are two different equations, because this thing inside of the absolute values could be worth 3, because the absolute value of 3 is 3, or it could be worth negative 3, because the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. So we want to make that stuff inside the absolute values equal to one of those two things. All right, so we've got our two answers. Our two answers are x equals 1 or x equals negative 5. So a different kind of equation here, two answers. All right, so we see that how we can use these linear equations is to solve two linear equations. Now, a linear equation means we just have a variable, one single variable to the first power. No x squares, no x thirds, or anything like that. All the equations we've done so far are linear. Okay, so solve the two linear equations to find solutions. That's the idea. All right. So let's think about this now on a number line. Okay, so we want to graph these things. We want to kind of see where these are at, because absolute value means distance. So we're going to look at this. Okay, so let's find a point on a real number line here. Let's locate a point for which x plus 2 equals 0. All right, well, what the answer for this would be negative 2. Okay. So negative 2 is the answer there. Okay. So now let's locate the points that are 3 units away from this point. So where are points that are 3 units away? Well, there's one up here at 1, because that's 1, 2, 3 jumps away. And if we go 1, 2, 3 jumps over here, we have negative 5. Okay. Oh, so what do you notice about these points x equals negative 5 and x equals 1? Well, those are the points that the answers that we found up above. Okay, so how can we find use a number line to solve an absolute value equation? Well, how we can do that is this. When we have the absolute value equation, x plus 2 equals negative 3. Well, we ask ourselves, what makes this 0? And the answer is x minus 2 makes this thing inside the absolute value 0. I'm sorry, x equals negative 2, I should say. Okay. So when x equals negative 2, then it makes that 0. All right, so negative 2 becomes our center. This is the center. And absolute value means distance. Remember up here, absolute value meant the distance from 4. Okay, so this is how far 4 is from 0. How far 4 is from 0. That's what that means. Okay, well, this means how far it is from negative 2, which is just the opposite of this. All right. Don't stress too much about that now. That's what's going on. Just keep in mind that absolute value means distance. So on the next page here, let's take a look at, we got absolute value equation. Absolute value equation is an equation with an absolute value. Okay. Equation with an absolute value. All right. All right. And when we have an absolute value, sometimes we can have what we call an extraneous solution. So an extraneous solution is one that seems to be true, or it seems to work, but when we plug it back in, it does not make the equation true, okay? But when it's checked by plugging it back in, it doesn't satisfy the equation, okay? It doesn't satisfy the equation. All right. So that's an extraneous solution. Okay, and we'll see that here in a few minutes. All right. As we work with absolute values, some things that we need to keep in mind here. Okay, whenever we take the absolute value of a number, it's always greater than 0. All right, you always get a positive number out, and we kind of know that from what we've done. All right, if you take the absolute value of a negative variable, well, that just wipes the negative out because we said it always becomes positive. If we have two things being multiplied, well, that's the absolute value of a times b. Okay, so for example, here on this one, if we have the absolute value of negative 4x, well, that's just the absolute value of negative 4 times the absolute value of just positive x. All right. So we just split these two up, and so this means this is 4 times the absolute value of x. And now we can work with it a little bit more. All right? So these things can be useful as we work with them. We have the absolute value of a divided by b. Well, we can break that up as well into two absolute values. Okay, so if we have the absolute value of negative 4 over x, well, that's the absolute value of negative 4 over the absolute value of x, which is 4 over x, absolute value of x. All right, so we could pull the 4 out if we wanted to. So just some little things that are useful. Okay, just kind of tuck those in your hat for now, and let's move on. So what if we have some more complicated equations here? Okay, well, here's the steps for solving absolute value equations. If we have absolute value of ax plus b. Now, a and b and c here, these are just numbers, plain old numbers, positive or negative numbers. Okay, but whenever we have the absolute value of something equals C, where C has to be a positive number, because remember, when we take the absolute value, we always get a positive number. So we want to solve the two equations. We could say the stuff inside of here could be worth C, and so that equation looks like this. Or the stuff inside could be worth the opposite of C, and that's written like this. Okay? When C is less than 0, meaning C is a negative number, then we have no solution, because an absolute value is always positive, never negative. So let's try a couple here. Okay? So let's solve these. Let's say we have absolute value of 3x plus 2 equals 13. Well, if we have the absolute value of something equals 13, that means this stuff in here could be equal to 13, because the absolute value of 13 is 13. So the stuff on the inside could be worth 13. Or the stuff on the inside could be worth negative 13. So 3x plus 2 could be worth negative 13. One of those things has to be true. So again, we take whatever's on the inside of the absolute value, and we set it equal to positive 13 and negative 13. Okay? And then we got two equations. We can solve it. So let's go ahead and do that. Subtract 2, and we've got 3x equals 11. And let me get rid of that line there. So divide by 3, x is 11 thirds. And we'll leave our answers as fractions. That's fine. Let's double check this. Absolute value of 3 times 11 thirds plus 2. Well, 3 times 11 thirds here, the 3's cancel, and that just makes 11. So this is the absolute value of 11 plus 2, and 11 plus 2 is 13. So that's the absolute value of 13, which is 13. That checks out. Let's try this guy over here. Subtract 2, and we get 3x equals negative 15. Divide by 3, and we get x is negative 5. There's another answer. Okay? So plug in negative 5 into our answer to check the absolute value of 3 times negative 5 plus 2. Well, 3 times negative 5 is 15. So this is absolute value of negative 15 plus 2. And negative 15 plus 2 is negative 13. And the absolute value of 13 is negative 13, that is 13. That checks out too. Okay? Got to check those answers out to see if it really works. Okay, and then we have, let's try one more. Okay, so what if we have an equation like this? 5 times the absolute value of x plus 7 minus 3 equals 12. Well, this one we actually have to do something first. We need to isolate the absolute value. Okay? Isolate the absolute value. Meaning we need to get this absolute value part all by itself. Got to get all this other stuff out of there. Don't try writing two equations yet. So let's copy that down. 5x plus 2. That's not a 2. Let's make that a 7, actually. X plus 7 minus 3 equals 12. So let's add 3 to both sides. And we get 5 times the absolute value of x minus 7 equals 15. Divide by 5. And absolute value of x minus 7 equals 3. All right, now we've got the absolute value all by itself. So we've got the absolute value of x minus 7 equals 3. Now that we have that, now we've isolated the variable. We need to make two equations. X minus 7 equals 3, or x minus 7 equals negative 3. Add 7, and x equals 10. Add 7, and x equals 4. Two answers. Let's check them out real quickly here. And we have our original equation, and we have 5 times, let's move that over here, 5 times the absolute value of 10 plus 7 minus 3. Is that equal, question mark, to 12? Well, this is 5 times 17 minus 3. Something's looking fishy here. Made a little mistake. I made it negative instead of positive instead of negative. This should be a minus here, 10 minus 7, which is 3. Now that looks a lot better. This is the absolute value of 3 is 3, so that's 15 minus 3, which is 12. Yes, this is 12. And that checks out. Okay. Now let's try this one real quickly. So we want to find out is the 5 is 5 times the absolute value of 10 minus 4 minus 3. Is that equal to 12? Well, 10 minus 4 is 7. Keep getting the wrong number here. Goodness, got to be careful. We are putting 4 in for x, and so we have 4 minus 7. That's what we're putting in for x. And 4 minus 7 is negative 3. And 5 times absolute value negative 3, that's 5 times 3. And this is 15 minus 3, which is 12. And this all equals 12. All right. And there you have it. So it works out. We're good. Last situation is when we have absolute value on both sides. So let's try that. When we have absolute value on both sides, it's going to work out very similar. We're going to take, if we have the absolute value of one expression equals the absolute value of the other, well, we're going to take away the absolute values, and we're going to do one where the right side is positive and one where the right side is negative. Let's look at an example here. So if we have 4x plus 3 in absolute values equals the absolute values of 2x minus 4. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to write two equations. We're going to say either 4x plus 3 equals 2x minus 4, just took the absolute values away, or 4x plus 3 equals the opposite of 2x minus 4. All right? And so we're going to solve these two equations, see what we get. Let's do that real quick. Subtract 2x. And 2x plus 3 equals negative 4. Subtract 3. 2x equals negative 7. Divide by 2. X is negative 7/2. Not pretty, but there you have it. Okay. And over here, let's distribute that negative. We have 4x plus 3 equals negative 2x. Distributing this negative, remember, it's like a negative 1 there. And so we have 2x negative 1 times negative 4 gives us positive 4. Now let's solve this. Add 2x. 6x plus 3 equals 4. Subtract 3. 6x equals 1 divided by 6, and x equals 1/6. Okay? Not the prettiest of answers, but we've got to check them out real quickly here. So let's bring this equation over here. We have the absolute value of 4x plus 3 equals absolute value of 2x minus 4. Okay. So let's check that out. We got -7/2 first. Okay. So -7/2, absolute value of 4 times -7/2 plus 3. Okay, gonna have to do some fraction work here. Okay. On the right side, that's nice because this 2 cancels with that 2, and we just have absolute value of -7 minus 4, which is going to be the absolute value of -11, which is 11. On this side, well, we can do some canceling. This is like 4 over 1, and 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes in there twice. So this is going to be the absolute value of 2 times -7, which is -14, plus 3. And that's the absolute value of -11, which is 11. And that checks out. Okay? Let's try plugging in 1/6. That's our second answer. And so if we plug in 1/6 here, we've got the absolute value of 4 times 1/6 plus 3 equals the absolute value of 2 times 1/6 minus 4. Okay, so this is 4/6 plus 3. 4/6 is 2/3. And let's just go ahead and write that as 3 2/3. See where that goes. This is 2/6 minus 4, which is 1/3. Okay, so this is like 1/3 minus, let's go ahead and cancel that. Let's just do this. This is 1. This is 3. So this is 1/3. Now 1/3 minus 4 is going to be -3 1/3. And that is 3 1/3. So they both check out. We're good. Okay, so we've got our answers. And that's how you do it there. Write 2 equations. For an absolute value, write 2 equations. One that's equal to a positive and one that's equal to a negative. And when we have absolute values on both sides, make sure you put these parentheses around them and put the negative out in front there. All right, so go ahead and try these extra practice out and see what you can do with that. Good luck.